Give me all the raw energy. Don't stop, go ahead, get it in. Jump, knock, let me in. Huff and blow the house down. Raw energy.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Spoiler Warning Podcast. This is review number 799 with a review of Fight or Flight. I'm Christopher Schnese.
And I'm Stephen Miller.
And if you're joining us for the first time, the Spoiler Warning Podcast is a weekly film review program. Each week in the show, we're going to dive in, debate, discuss, and argue over the latest films coming to a theater near you. This week, in a few days, Stephen's going to be flying off to Cannes. So, we figured if he's going to go watch a bunch of prestigious films that are like very, very highbrow, critically acclaimed films, it might be good to just go watch one for fun right before he flies away. What do you think the gulf is, Stephen, between this film we just watched and most of the films you're going to be watching?
I mean, it depends. I mean, if we're including like midnight screenings and stuff, there's probably a lot of similarities between. I think there are at least like 3 Hong Kong equivalents of Fight or Flight that are premiering at midnight at Cannes.
Okay, nice.
So who knows? See, I didn't know you were going highbrow versus lowbrow. I thought you were going to go, because I'm about to get on a plane, you thought we would watch a relevant movie about what I might be experiencing.
Yeah.
I am flying through Newark tomorrow, which everyone says online that Newark has been a clusterfuck right now. I believe communications went down a couple times in a way that was very dangerous for the plane. So Josh Hartnett and I are both, we're basically the same people. We're risking life and limb to make a flight.
Are you going to bleach your hair so you can have the look too?
I might. I was thinking yesterday when I sat down to watch this movie that this is the second time this year I've seen a movie by an actor who was most famous decades ago in a plane wearing a surprising haircut.
And which one was the other one again?
What was it? What was it called? The Wahlberg one?
Oh, the other flight risk.
Yeah. Flight risk. That's right. But I guess that, now that I think about it, that was directed by an actor who peaked decades ago.
Gotcha.
Wahlberg, I don't know when his peak was, but I think it's more recent.
Some would say he's still peaking.
Yeah.
At least the top of his head was still peaking in that film.
I guess Wahlberg and Hartnett were both kind of heartthrobs in the late 90s, so it tracks,
That is true.
You can get some connection.
Speaking of flight risk, I didn't end up seeing it that weekend that I made you watch it. But I was praising Flight Risk is such a great name for that film. I didn't see it, I just saw the trailer, but the idea that you have a witness who might want to flee themselves, they are a flight risk, and also you are on a flight that is being risked by the fact that there is a man taking it over. It's like perfect double entendre. Beautiful, beautiful title. Stephen, how do you think they arrived at Fight or Flight? Because it seems like fight and flight were going to happen no matter what.
Right.
This is not an either or. It's not like either fight or take a flight. This is just a title that somebody thought sounded cool.
I honestly think Fight and Flight would have been a funnier title. Maybe they felt that would be too much of a leap and people wouldn't recognize the phrase that it's playing on for some reason. But I think it'd be more clever.
Stephen, Fight or Flight.
Oh.
See, there's the fun, because it's a flight full of fighters. Fight or Flight.
For flight.
I just think that there's so many things that were right there that they could have gone with that they didn't. We'll see if that was the only problem with this film, though.
The flighter.
All right, Stephen, you ready to get into this?
I'm ready.
All right, let's take a listen to the trailer for Fight or Flight, and then come back and give everybody a review.
What am I doing here, Catherine?
We're tracking a high-value target.
The ghost is a black hat terrorist.
Deliver the mark to us alive, you get your life back.
We have a big problem.
There isn't a country in the Western Hemisphere that doesn't have a bounty on the ghost's head.
Are you telling me that plane is full of killers?
Rough night?
Please open the door.
1 second!
You're looking for someone that's on this plane.
And other people are looking too.
Right. Can you find me something to change into?
Who hired you? You're not even sober.
closer than I'd like to be. If I bring you ghost and alive, I'm free.
What the hell are you doing?
Trying to help you.
Now, these people are paid a lot of money for first-class service, and I cannot have them disturbed.
Stop! Please!
Someone's put a hit on him.
What the? Start going through the luggage. There must be something we can use as weapons.
Oh, yeah.
The security of millions is at stake.
All right, so that was the trailer for Fight or Flight. It is basically the story of a mercenary who gets sent on a flight in order to track down somebody that people only know as the Ghost. And, he expects to be on this plane and trying to hunt down one person, but it turns out it's an entire plane full of people who are also trying to hunt down that person. And it's a story about how he tries to survive that flight. Stephen Miller, what did you think of Fight or Flight?
I thought this movie was pretty fun in a very, very dumb way. I think Bullet Plane would be a fine name for this movie. Very clearly it is coasting off of that wave of genre, storytelling where it's just we are going to get a bunch of people to fight each other, totally unabashed, do whatever we have to do for the plot to orchestrate this into happening. Everyone is in on the joke. The actor is going to know they're in a goofy movie. All of the various assassins that he fights are going to be campy in the silliest possible way. Like, this movie, it gives you exactly what you expect it to give you. And I think in general, it does it in an entertaining way. It cuts to the good stuff as quickly as possible, and it really doesn't try to make you spend much time sitting with anything that is not zany fights or Josh Hartnett trying to get himself out of a jam. It's kind of funny to watch this in relation to Trap, because Trap was all about Josh Hartnett I don't want to spoil anything about Trap. He's trying to figure out his way out of a prickly situation.
Yeah.
And that means his acting in Trap had to be a lot of underhanded, a guy who's pretending something and maybe not always pulling it off. And here he has to be improvising constantly, but rather than being this evil Machiavellian like genius who is figuring out on the fly what to do next, he is just an alcoholic who is super tired, exhausted by everything, and just kind of is lumbering through all of his battles in a way that I found pretty amusing. He had these kind of crazy eyes in Trap that he would give occasionally that made sense for where the character was. He does it a lot here too, which makes me wonder, is that just like a Josh Hartnett thing, is sometimes his eyes look crazy? I'm not as well-versed. I'm not well-versed enough in his early 2000s, films to know if this has just always been a part of him. But regardless, I liked him. He is very much the Brad Pitt in Bullet Train role. I think he does it basically equally well. In my mind, he's a totally fun action star playing against type in a silly way. I enjoyed it a lot. When I get beyond the choreography, which it doesn't want me to do, to be clear, but when I happen to think beyond the choreography, there are things the movie is trying to do that I don't think it pulls off. There is a whole plot about who is setting this in motion, who is tapping Josh Hartnett to begin with. And there are some twists and turns and reveals there that are so, as far as I'm concerned, half-assed. They barely even commit to it being a reveal, and they certainly don't want me to care about the reveal long enough to do anything with it. There are certain things that I feel like they did just to say they had a feature-length movie. Like, they feel like they need extra set dressing beyond Josh Hartnett beating up bad guys. It's fine. Whatever. To me, things like that are where this movie really kind of shows its seams in its construction a bit. basically, I didn't care about anyone who was not Josh Hartnett or there's a flight attendant that winds up helping him, Charithra Chandran. You learn to care about her because she just has more screen time, and she's kind of the sympathetic audience POV character for parts of it. Pretty much everyone else in the movie, I could not give a shit about what their motivation is, what they're trying to do. I don't even know if I understand what they want. I don't know if I believe this many hitmen would all be willing to die back to back to back.
Steven, it's $10 million.
I know.
Think about the economy of hitmen right now. I mean, it's just...
and I guess we live in some kind of instant crypto trading type world where there's a guarantee that if it happens, you do get the money. You don't have to trust the person who put the hit out. We're in like a John Wick universe where like there will be repercussions if someone doesn't make good.
So here's the funny thing too. This is happening on a plane full of killers.
Mm-hmm.
How would anybody verify who killed the target if they're all there to kill the target? It just would be like everybody sends it, like somebody kills and they're like, damn, everybody grabs their phone and is trying to hit send on their text message.
How does attribution work in this world? It's a really difficult problem.
Yeah. If only 10 people make it off the plane, then 10 people get $1 million.
I just have to ask, and I haven't seen the trailer for this movie, but I'm going to assume this isn't a spoiler, like the scale of the number of hitmen on the plane. Like, it seems like the plane is mostly hitmen.
Yeah.
Almost exclusively. We don't need to get into spoilers for this movie, but mechanically, I assume many regular people already had this flight booked before the events that kick things in motion started. So I was wondering, just from a flight logistics standpoint, how all of these people made it onto the plane. And I feel really bad for the, 10 normal people who are also there.
Yeah, that's the thing is you would have to somehow get an extra plane added to a rotation that was started fresh and then have all those tickets fill up. If I remember correctly, there was a similar thing in Bullet Train. There was a similar explanation of a really, really rich person just bought all the seats or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then
because in that one, there was one person pulling the strings, which I guess theoretically, maybe one could argue this is hinting. I don't know. We don't have to get into it. It's just, it's all very, very, very goofy action movie logic.
And other films have done this too. If you remember from Inception, there's that line where Ken Watanabe says something like, "Oh, I just bought the airline." Mm-hmm. he's like, "How are you going to buy a whole plane?" "I bought the whole airline."
Yeah.
So you can definitely do it.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I don't know. Silly, zero brain power used while watching this movie, but I had a dumb good time. How about you?
I had a dumb time for sure. I couldn't, before getting to the theater, I wasn't really thinking about Bullet Train too much, but then during the film I was. And mostly the reason I thought about it is because in Bullet Train, it is very specific assassins. It's like, what if the assassin who would have had their own movie is now on this train, and that's the person that Brad Pitt is trying to fight against? This felt like sort of generic villains who are also there. It just seemed like regular assassins, right? Not like assassins who are the star of their own story. It just seemed like random regular assassins, with the exception of one character who seems to have a whole I'm Trinity but with weird alien eyes sort of situation going on. That it was why is there one unique assassin and all the other assassins are just assassin-y type people that look whatever way they look? It's I'm the one assassins from this country, I'm the assassins from this country, and besides that there's just one person who is I'm cosplaying assassin.
Yeah, you want there to be a final boss or a big reveal, and it never happens. There's no such thing in this movie.
Yeah. So for me, I was kind of I was constantly just a little bit going I think this is fun, and I think it's dumb enough to be fun, but it also felt a little bit lacking. And part of that was just the action is fun. I genuinely enjoyed the action in this film, but it felt like the needle drops for the action scenes also felt a little lackluster. It was almost like the equivalent of, in the rehearsal, in the new season of the rehearsal, when they're having a music singing competition, but it's only royalty free music. I know it wasn't all royalty-free music, but it felt like a lower tier of excitement of music that kind of just didn't quite meet the level of action that we were watching. And so something about it kind of let me down a little bit. And then, as you kind of mentioned, there are a bunch of reveals on who's pulling the string, what those people's role are in, I'll just say, the world. And there were scenes that, like, they're shot as though you're supposed to go like, oh, damn. And then, like, when it happens.
Right. Like one drone shot that pulls back to make the big reveal.
And you're like, first of all.
And I get what they're trying to do with that. It's just such a half-assed reveal. I don't care.
Yeah. Also, who made the logo for that company? Because I stared at it for a while, and I would have paused it if I was watching at home, because I was like, what the fuck is this? This is so weird. But anyways, it is fun. Something about it kind of left me wanting more as I was watching it. And, you know, I cared enough about some of the main characters and what their motivations were. I even tiny bit cared about their backstory, about how they got to places. Oh, wow. Just in like the barest little sense, right? It was kind of like, okay, cool. I know what you're going to do based on this information. But it was kind of like characters say things because the script needs them to say it, but they don't really feel like real people who are going through a real thing. The chemistry of certain characters works good for me. I enjoyed that. But I think overall, this film kind of let me down. And I say that kind of because it wasn't like I was like super hyped for it. It was just kind of like, oh yeah, this seems fun enough to watch as like our let's throw together review this weekend situation. So
yeah, and I mean that is mostly the bar that I'm holding it to. I guess I did have a bit more fun than you did. I think maybe it's because the fighting on a plane, at least for a while in this movie, and I have a related criticism, but for a while, that adds an interesting element because you are fighting while trying to not alert too many passengers as to what is going on. And as someone who travels quite a bit, at least historically, it's just fun to think about like an airplane and what can you do in the kitchen or in the bathroom, or what can you do with the overhead luggage, like stuff like that. I enjoyed. I found that pretty amusing, and it made it fun to see even when more kind of repetitive fighting started to happen. The problem is this movie kind of gets rid of that conceit after the first 30 minutes. Yeah. At a certain point, I think too early in this movie, it decides this is an all-out brawl, and it would have been fun to watch Josh Hartnett try to navigate covertly a bit longer. So that's one criticism I have. Another criticism, and this is more a pet peeve, I have no objective reason to feel this way, but I do in every movie. I find hallucinogenic drug comedy sequences to be very fucking boring in movies, and they love to do it. It is like the easiest shortcut to comedy in an action movie is have a moment when the character is on drugs and we see from their perspective, and it's like, oh, ha ha ha, they're having a fun and light and trippy experience while the reality is gruesome. I've seen it so many times, I feel like it just does nothing to me, and I get annoyed because I would rather watch the fight choreography than whatever joke they're trying to make. Yeah. Has always been a pet peeve of mine. Don't really know why, but this movie has that for more of an extended amount of fighting than I would have wanted if I were the director.
Yeah, and I think that why it doesn't work in this situation is it's fine if you're two people in a car on a drug trip, and I say fine, not like I think it's hilarious and I laugh and roll on the floor every time I see it. But I mean, if you're doing a thing that is theoretically normal, that's fine. But if you were in the middle of a fight, you having this slow reaction to things you're seeing is going to cause you to lose that fight, not cause you to do well in the fight. So it feels like the gulf between what they're experiencing and what is actually happening around them doesn't make sense in this situation.
Yeah. I forget, did we ever record a review of Novocaine, or for some reason did we skip recording?
We must have not recorded it. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, because I Novocaine has sometimes similar jokes, and I feel like it's just kind of low-hanging fruit in a way that I don't... Whatever. I like you to rest on your action without having to lean so hard in the comedy side of action comedy that you're undercutting the choreography.
Yeah. Now, if you were somebody who wasn't that great at fighting, but drugs made you see everything as like evil, crazy stuff, and that's how you were able to defeat everything, and then when you came down, you realized that you just murdered a bunch of people, maybe that would work. But if you're already fighting... if
you were like winter soldiering the whole time, I guess it would be cool.
You get so high, you turn into fucking... Yeah. See, that could be fun.
One thing I will praise this movie for is it is pretty grisly in its fights in a way that I found enjoyable. It seems to take a lot of joy into trying to make you hurt while you're watching it. Like, do close-ups of arms snapping in half and people getting crammed in places and a head being pushed through a spike, like stuff that just makes you squirm in a way that my audience was pretty small. There were probably only, I don't know, 10 other people in my theater, but you could hear them audibly reacting to those moments in a way that I found fun. So I like it when these action movies kind of go for that.
And I think too that like a moment ago, you had mentioned like a thing you thought was fun was the way they play with like, could you do something in this one space without alerting too many passengers? The reason why that didn't work perfectly for me is because it's not like they were silently killing each other, right? It's commotion that people on a plane. I get it if it's like during sleepy time and most of the people are asleep on the plane, that maybe you could get away with something. And there's even a nod to that in that, like, when they turn the house lights back on, like all the people who are like walking through the aisles like sit down as though they're like, oh, we're just sitting in our seat, nothing's happening. But what it missed is, you already compared it to Trap for obvious reasons because we have the same lead in it. But in Trap, he was murdering people and then trying to like make like, oh, this person just fell down some stairs, or like this person, like a thing exploded in the fryer machine or whatever. Like he was getting away with it and allowing people to see something's happening. But like, imagine if this was a thing where it was like playing Among Us or something, where it's like nobody could know who killed a person, just that people were randomly being found dead on the plane. That, I think, having something like that in this, where nobody knew who else was a thing, so they were trying to like silently kill people, and like everybody's trying to cross off the entire manifest. Like everybody has stolen the manifest secretly, and they're all like crossing names off it as they go, and then there's just less and less people on the plane. Like I think there could be a fun like Clue sort of thing going on, like who did what. But the fact that it's just kind of like, well, there's a few people that fight and then all hell breaks loose on the plane, and you kind of lose track of who is a civilian and who is an assassin, because you kind of forget there are regular people on the plane until like one scene where it has a bunch of people backed in a corner while chaos goes on.
Yeah, I agree. I think I liked thinking about the challenge of doing it in secret more than I feel like the movie actually executed on letting you see people do it in secret. And we don't need to have a spoiler section for this, but all I'll say is there are certain easy solutions to most of this movie that we don't get because we are told that there are certain protocols where if the flight doesn't go as expected, it will trigger some kind of security protocol. There are reasons very shortly into this movie that security protocols no longer matter because anyone who could enforce it is out of the picture already. And that is just one of those narrative contrivances where I'm like, okay, sure. You need it to be a big, like, fight from the beginning to end of the plane. And obviously, if a character just, like, went down and locked themselves in a room, then maybe it would be too boring. But things like that are just kind of silly. In the pro camp, I really enjoyed the line, "You can't pickle a pickle," and I was Googling it, and I don't think I've actually, like, it doesn't seem to exist outside of fight or flight. It doesn't seem like a thing people just say all the time, and I really like that line.
So you're saying they had one original idea in this movie?
Yeah, well, they had one quip that I feel like I guess I hope I don't hit a place in my life when I can use it in a sentence, but it feels like it should enter the lexicon.
Yeah. This has nothing to do with the movie, but it was spurred by something you were just saying. On modern airlines, in our post 9/11 world, why is there not a button the captains can press that just incapacitates the entire cabin? Like,
what do you mean by incapacitates?
like it just gasses the entire everybody.
Oh, why don't they just fly with gas?
No, not like
question.
Not like the entire flight is like that. But I mean that, like, imagine if there was some sort of thing that happened on and like people are going crazy and you're just like, cool, emergency protocol. It's like the Lysine contingency in Jurassic Park. It's like it incapacitates.
It would be nice if you could just put everyone to sleep.
Yeah. And I know that the Lysine contingency in Jurassic Park was not about just putting things to sleep. Everything dies if you don't continue to administer the whatever. But you know what I mean? It's just like if there's an emergency, not kill switch, but like an emergency sleep switch that were on commercial airlines where they could just incapacitate everybody on the plane and just be like,
that'd be great. Yeah, like Ambien, just like
yeah, just the aerosolized version.
Yeah, I like that because the movie kind of hints that would work. At least for one character, they do it.
Yeah.
Not aerosolized, but still.
Yeah, it's just something to think about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, really smart. I like that movies like this are asking us tough questions about airplane security, and hopefully we can be better for watching them.
Yeah. So I know you've done a lot more international travel than me. I have never been on a double-decker airline or one that has just like a cabin that you can go stand at a bar and get drinks at. Have you been on one of these before?
I've certainly been on double-decker flights before. The only kind I remember seeing are ones where the upstairs is business class only.
Okay.
That is like I did a flight from Frankfurt to SFO that was like that before. I believe I have maybe seen a bar. I think Singapore Airlines has that. In first class, I didn't stay in the first class, but I think I saw it while I was walking to my seat.
Yeah.
I've certainly never walked up and gone to a bar on a plane before, but I do believe like Emirates and Qantas and some of the more kind of fancy Middle Eastern or, Asian airlines, I think are starting to have that for the first class cabins.
Yeah. That is rad. The idea of any space that you could just go to, even if it was not cool, it was just like a cafeteria with.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, what completely defies belief though is the idea that you would have a fully stocked bar when a bit of turbulence is going to send all those bottles flying. like that definitely. However it works, it does not look like it does in this movie.
It's rare earth magnets are in the bottom of the bottles, and then it's on a metal shelf.
Yeah.
I like the idea that that's the one unbelievable thing in the film is like, come on, guys, those bottles would not, or maybe those planes are just so big that turbulence doesn't actually shake them that much.
Yeah. So Emirates and Virgin have onboard bars. Some of these kind of luxury ones have it.
Nice. Yeah, that would be cool. Even just having a plane where there's a space you could stand up in that wasn't just next to somebody else's seat, or more importantly, not next to my seat.
Yeah.
Cool. Verdict time?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
All right. If you were going to give this a must-see, recommend with a caveat, wait for rental, pass with a caveat, or a must-avoid, what would you get?
I'm giving it a wait for rental. I think it's a fun rental. I enjoyed it. It is. I'm using the word dumb over and over again because this is really a turn your brain off. This is Smokin' Aces. This is Bullet Train. This is like, I want to see silly action sequences and I don't want to think very hard about it. And I think this delivers. I think Josh Hartnett is pretty good in the role, or at least carries it well enough, as a pretty boy who manages to look kind of broken by the world in a fun way,
emotionally and physically.
Yeah, exactly. Emotionally and physically, it's fine. It's completely fine. Every piece of the plot, the motivations of Ghost, the motivations of the people who set this in motion, reveals, couldn't care less about it. Doesn't matter at all. The movie also doesn't care about it, as evidenced by the fact that it refuses to make you sit with it for more than like 45 seconds before changing the conversation to something else. So don't expect anything by way of plot, but I thought the fights were fun and silly, and the movie was short enough that I enjoyed it for the whole time.
Yeah, I for me, it's a wait for rental. I did not dislike this movie. I just didn't like it. It was like right in the middle for me. I think that if it was a little bit dumber and a little bit more fun, I would have wholeheartedly kind of enjoyed this film. But for me, it felt like it was trying to insert, it was trying to show it had actual things to say, but the things it was trying to say weren't really that great. And that kind of made me feel everything else a little bit less than I would have if I was just watching a really, really fun Bullet Train / Trap style, whatever. I was actually trying to... Did we not do a review of Bullet Train? I feel like we definitely talked about it, but I was searching on the site and I couldn't find which episode the Bullet Train review was.
I feel like we did, because I remember us talking about spoilers and everything. But there have been periods of time in the podcast where we're traveling a bunch and we probably watch movies and then don't find time to record, and they just become like beer conversations instead.
Yeah. Or we reference them on other episodes that we recorded in and around that time. But anyways, Wait for Rental. Didn't hate it, but this would make a better Netflix film than a actual theatrical experience, especially, again, in my theater full of, 10% occupancy. So,
Yep.
All right, Stephen, that's going to bring us to the end of our review of Fight or Flight, or as I'm calling it now, Fight or Flight. If people want to find you throughout the week, where can they do that?
People can find me at Threads or Blue Sky at sdavidmiller or sdavidmiller.com.
People can find me at ChristopherInRealLife.com or ChristopherIRL on a number of social platforms. You can find the podcast over at thespoilerwarning.com where you get a bunch of the back episodes of the show. If you want to subscribe to the show, you can do so in Overcast, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or wherever podcasts are found. If you want to know when the episodes go live, you can follow us at twitter.com/spoilerwarning, facebook.com/thespoilerwarning, or instagram.com/thespoilerwarning. If you want to get a hold of us directly, you can send an email to fans@thespoilerwarning.com, or you can use the contact form on our site. Music for this episode will come from a track selected from artlist.io, so hopefully you're enjoying that. That's it for this week. Steven's off to Cannes for a couple weeks, and then we will return with maybe some Cannes conversation and also a review of Mission Impossible whatever, because I believe that's the week you get back, right?
Yeah, though hopefully I will get in to see it at Cannes. I haven't had luck getting a ticket yet, but we'll see. Hopefully I will have seen it by the time we land.
One way or another, it will be available to you when you get back.
Right.
But yeah, thanks everybody for listening, and we will see you in a few weeks. Bye.
Bye.